50 cavers. For the next 7 weeks, we'll be spread around, above, beneath and inside a mountain, trying to find a way through 5,000 feet of solid limestone.
What's that? Got it in that 3 seconds.
Our base is Tresviso, an isolated village high in the Picos de Europa, notorious for its powerful blue cheese. Our leader, Howard, broke his leg in a cave 2 weeks before we left England, so now he's relegated to hobbling between the bar and the campsite. Our campsite is just above the village, and it's a great place for lying around. Often we do it for too long, and the villagers call us mad Englishmen for setting off in the midday sun. But Colin, who is in charge of exploration in Agua, chivies us along. Soon the rucksacks are packed and all the gear prepared. My dubious honour as cameraman is to look after the film gear, which gets taken some pretty rough places. Howard, of course, can't come along.
Right, cheerio, Howard. See you later, lad. Take it easy.
The Cueva del Agua lies at the bottom of the Odon Gorge, carved 1,500 feet into the Carboniferous limestone of the Picos. A long time ago, someone cut a zigzag path into the gorge side. It makes a very pleasant walk down. Not so nice walking back up. In the cool, at the bottom of the gorge, everyone gets changed. Always a tense moment before a long caving trip.
Will we ever see the sun again? Will we ever feel the rain again? Will we ever sing our songs again? Or will the days we...
The river flowing out of the cave is channeled into a canal built into the side of the gorge and feeding a hydroelectric station several miles down. Quite a feat of engineering. To get to the far end of Agua involves piles and piles of ropes and ladders. The far end is now 1,500 feet higher than the entrance and over a mile into the mountain. To get to the far end involves many hours of caving, but to do any exploration we have to camp there. So all this work is just preparation, and the real work will start in a few days when groups of 3 cavers will spend up to 4 days at a time inside the system. Whilst we pushed on through the cave, Anne and Dave were at work elsewhere.
"5,000 feet above the Agua entrance, the bare limestone is riddled with potholes. Tests with dyed water have shown that it drains through to Agua. If we can get through, we establish a world depth record. But each entrance must be investigated. Some go nowhere. Others are more interesting, but each must be numbered so that we don't get confused. Dave will upsail down and see if it's worthwhile me joining him to explore further. 80 feet down, I rejoined Dave and were ready to investigate. This has obviously been mined. The area used to be rich in zinc blende, but often mined passages lead into a natural cave, so it's worth a further look round. But at the end of the passage, there was nothing but a blank wall with an old drill bit.
Perhaps they're boreholes they've been testing further in for ore. It's a very recent mine.
Concrete with a bolt key.
Have a good rattle. Pull it out. See how long the...
It won't come out, it's solid as a rock.
Oh no, they drilled the holes and then they...
Hey, look, there's daylight down there.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it might break out into a lake depression.
I'm totally confused in the ground. I don't know which direction we're heading. This particular mine surfaced just a few hundred yards from where we went in, which made it a whole lot easier for the film crew.
Leaving behind the rigours of mine exploration, we returned to our palatial high mountain accommodation, the White House, which was once used by the miners. Life ambles on at a steady pace here. All the hardships of underground life are forgotten amidst the simple pleasures of domestic routine. But nothing lasts forever. After all, this was a caving expedition and there were plenty of caves around.
6, 7, 8 Mars bars and 2 tins of conchas.
Can we have some conchas now?
Oh, I wish they were chinchas.
Let's take them on the ground, it's too hot. I'm too hot.
Do you know what? I don't think I've actually had any chinchas.
I got one tin. Can we carry it all down?
We descended more than 200 surface shafts, and most of them went nowhere. But this one we called Terra, and we had already explored it down to 800 feet. It was our brightest hope at this stage of the expedition.
I'm in the shade anyway.
I'm going to take up the Spanish cave.
The entrance slope was made up entirely of mine spoil, and was very loose. Quite unnerving at times, in fact. Once you reached the mine passages, everything appeared a bit more stable, fortunately. Here we met one unexpected luxury that you don't usually meet in English caves: wooden ladders. A lot of the woodwork used by the miners was still in place and in fairly good condition, and we felt able to trust it. More or less. At the foot of this ladder, we got into the start of the natural cave, and then the real work began. After this, it was just pitch after pitch after pitch. Sometimes the rope seemed horribly thin, but you had to put this to the back of your mind and just get on with it. We go down on a rack. It's not a torture device, but it's designed for a smooth, friction-controlled descent. On the way down, we're following the course of the water, which after all did us the favour of cutting the cave in the first place. But personally, I've never taken to the masochistic delights of a small waterfall running down my neck. On really awkward drops, we still use ladders. They're much less likely to wear through than a single rope, and you feel a lot more confident when you're going down them. Fortunately, there's a cafe halfway down. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best part of any caving trip. A varied menu, peanuts and pilchards, sardines and mint cake, and no table manners.
He's built the rice pudding all over himself. Look at him, he's gathered from end to foot now.
Spots of white rice pudding all over his shit.
Are you doing it with your own strength, lad?
Strong enough, you know, man.
Just bloody strong, yeah.
Just slip it into my mouth, then.
Oh God, sticky, that's the trouble.
Most of their desires now satisfied, the team presses on. This is always the tensest moment on a big pitch, as you unclip and lower your weight onto your rack. It looks a long way down. In fact, it's about 300 feet. But once you set off, a feeling of exhilaration takes over. We're down to 1,000 feet now, but like most pushing trips, this one comes to a halt when we run out of tackle at the head of a big pitch. In time-honoured tradition, Colin throws a boulder over the edge to get some idea of what's in store. Looks good.
How have you carried on that?
Meanwhile, back at Tresviso, a delicate operation is in progress.
Put into a fighting situation, you know.
We're 4 weeks into the expedition now, and getting into the swing of caving. All except for Howard, that is.
See where his leg gives way. So solid.
He was under doctor's orders to take it easy for 2 weeks after the pot was off. In fact, he was underground within 3 days.
Cut all the bottom off and miss his foot.
Yeah, well, there's a foot on the bottom. Yeah, we don't really need the pickaxe just yet.
Yeah, it's right.
Hey!
Just... Oh, dead skin.
Right, that's the foot
Look at
there.
that, eh?
Yeah, it's all...
Bastard, I've got a flea.
Down at Agua, teams of cavers have been spending 3 days at a time living and working underground. Colin has spent a total of 12 nights inside the system, and with Nick and Pete is now embarking on his next trip. By early August, the water level has dropped, and we can use the river entrance. The river flows from the very heart of the mountain, but our way, as usual, lies through these nasty grovelly crawls. It soon opens up. We call this place the Black Hole. We've trod it so many times we know the individual boulders. We call this the Turnstone. This part of the cave is flooded most of the winter, the water scouring deep potholes in the floor. As we climb higher towards the camp, we enter passages long ago deserted by the river, the only water being steady drips feeding the stalactite formations. The only water, that is, apart from a pool 20 feet long. This wouldn't be much trouble, except that in the middle of the pool, the roof dips down to almost meet the surface. This is the sump. Six hours from the entrance, we reach our underground home, a large chamber we call Consort Hall. It's almost 60 feet high, and we've never seen it properly by the light of our carbides, so it's a real pleasure to have a good look round with the film lights on. Another pleasure is getting out of a cold wetsuit. Ken, Mike and Ian have already spent 2 days underground. They've just come back from exploring a steep climb. That will be our objective tomorrow.
Well, just from the bottom of the pitch along the passage a bit is this chamber, a huge calcite flow, bit of a black passage at the top. Probably go. Reckon we should go back tomorrow with a climber rope, very definitely.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
But today is Mike's birthday, and as we live on sweets and dried food underground, a bacon butty is a really special treat.
Only 2 days?
Yeah, after dried food.
Bloody good change.
Come on, come on. No, don't look at the bag, no.
No underground birthday party is complete without presents from a close friend on the surface.
Oh, isn't that nice? Have we got a little glass jug of water?
You haven't got a fountain on your woolly bear, have you?
Ah, isn't that nice? Ah, great, thanks a lot.
Day 2. Beyond the camp, it gets steeper and steeper. This climb, which the others found yesterday, is one of many we've tried in the last few weeks. The passage here is old, even by Agua standards. The rock often decaying and the climbing treacherous.
Don't kill yourself, Carl.
This part of Agua is a three-dimensional maze. So far, all our leads have gone nowhere. We hope this will be the way on. It's slow, hard work for Colin, fixing bolts up the sheer rock, and cold, boring work for the lifeliners. There must be a surface connection. This squirrel certainly didn't dive the sump.
Come on, go Bill, look at these! There's some bloody great helicopters up here.
When we got to the top of the climb, just like all the others, there was no way on. As a consolation though, we found the finest formations in the whole of Agua. Perhaps we will be the only human beings ever to see this display. A strange feeling.
He's going to take some bloody reading these now.
They won't believe us.
What? What's your knowledge?
But you could virtually hang a ladder on that one.
After all our weeks of effort, the way through the mountain was as elusive as ever. Perhaps another year we'll find the route through Agua, which must surely be there.